We are so pleased to be joined today with Lee Kitchen. Lee is a five-star innovation catalyst, workshop leader, culture change agent, design thinking trainer, and seasoned meeting facilitator. During his 32-year career at the Walt Disney Company, he helped create some of the most impactful marketing campaigns, memorable guest experiences, and real-time operational efficiency changes. Now he serves companies hungry for innovation, internal creativity, and fresh thinking through his own company, Magic Dude Consulting. Lee, thank you so much for taking the time today to join us. It's great to see you.
Yeah, thanks, John. I'm really excited to be here.
It's so great to have you. Listen, you've had a long and storied career at Disney. Would love to hear a little about your background, the kind of things you did there.
Yeah, there's so many stories. We could go all night and roll on stories. But yeah, Disney was something I wanted to do since I was 6 years old. So I basically I read about Walt, I read about Epcot. I was super excited to be there. I remember I basically turned 18, graduated high school, and had my truck loaded up with a U-Haul trailer and moved to Florida.
And you're
I
out.
started, yeah, I started in summer of 1985, so it kind of shows you how old I am. I started at Epcot Future World, so it was back in the days of what do you call it, when all the pavilions were themed to different future subjects. So I was in the Land Pavilion, and they started me at the Kitchen Cabaret, which is no longer there. It was a audio animatronic show about vegetables and fruits and other good nutrition. And now it's actually where the Soarin'. So if you're familiar with the park, it's where Soarin' is
For
now.
sure.
But
Down to the bottom,
yeah,
right? Bottom
I
basement.
started there. I worked attractions for a couple years. I went over to Magic Kingdom and I worked at 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is no
Mhm.
longer there. Worked at Space Mountain, and then I got this great job at guest relations. So I don't know if you've ever seen a guest relations person at Disney, but they help kind of manage people who have unsatisfactory experiences, right? Yeah, but on the same side, they do that, which is the grueling part of it. But the fun part is they're also tour guides, so you get to be a
Ah,
VIP host to all kinds of famous people. I had some really great tours and basically got to host everybody in the parks, go on rides, eat at restaurants. It was a pretty luxurious job. But those people help the people in marketing a lot. So I was exposed to a lot of marketing events, special events, press events, things like that. And I ended up getting a job in special events, which was part of marketing at the time. And I helped start the Food and Wine Festival. I don't know if you're a Food and Wine Festival
Uh,
fan, but it's
how can you not be? It's like the greatest
all
time to be.
right.
It's like what you drink, you eat, you go on rides. What
I
could
mean,
possibly what
you
could
drink,
possibly
you
go
eat, you
wrong?
spend about $200 or $300, whatever. My
It's the
my stock
best.
price appreciates it. Yeah, so I was on the first team to do that. I went to brand management after that. Worked basically all four parks brand management, and then I had a really lucky and I got a job for Disney Cruise Line. I was a shoreside marketing guy there, but the thing is, it was a really small, efficient group, and so the broadcast people didn't have enough people to sail with media. So they would constantly say, "Hey, we need somebody up for media for 4 nights tomorrow. Can you go?" And I'd be like, "Can I go? Are you kidding me?" So I sailed on about 100 cruises, hosting different
Wow,
media, and as much work as it was, and it was hard work. Having the ship as a backdrop was about the coolest office you could possibly have.
for sure.
So worked there at Disney Cruise Line, bunch of passionate people. I was lucky enough to land this job at a individual department with about 8 people called Creative Inc. And what they were doing was they were helping the marketing team brainstorm ideas for upcoming things. And I was an idea guy, so I thought, oh, I'd be perfect for this role because I come up with all kinds of ideas. Well, the trick was they didn't want my ideas; they wanted me to help other people extract ideas from other people. So
Huh.
we started this department basically, and we just started, being facilitators in front of the room with people yelling out ideas and stuff like that. But then we got this great boss who sent us to be trained under the likes of IDEO. We went and trained under a great guy in Canada named Tim Herson, has a book called Think Better. And before you knew it, we were experts in design thinking, creative problem solving. And because we were such a small group, we got asked to do so many great things, not just in parks marketing, but I ended up helping. I worked with Lucasfilm for a little bit on a project. I
Wow.
worked with Marvel. I went to New York for like a month and a half working with ABC News. I traveled to help open the Shanghai park. It was a really, really great job because we basically not only did we train people to think more creatively and think differently about their own businesses, but we were also practitioners of the process. So we would go out there, train a group of people, and then we would also run an innovation project of any given magnitude. I left Disney in 2017, and since then I started my company, Magical Dude Consulting. And like I was telling you earlier, it's just such a great gig. I have so many different kinds of clients. The cool thing about what I do is that it's transferable to most any industry. Like I have clients in healthcare, I have clients in the auto industry, I have a lot of travel and leisure clients, I have food and dining clients. Like it's a really great gig because I get to work with a lot of really awesome companies. I just recently talked to my partners at Amazon. They want to do something next year, so yeah, I got a lot of great clients, and I really enjoy what I do. I enjoy inspiring people to create ideas, basically.
That's great. And so it's very unusual, right? But it makes a ton of sense. So it sounds like you help facilitate a group of people in the room,
Yep,
and there's ideas to be had. And your job is to get these people to unlock those ideas and create more concrete, action-oriented type things tangible things
absolutely.
they can do with it.
Yeah, and the trouble is that most people, when they get in a room and do that, they only think linearly. So they
Yeah.
only think about the thing that's top of mind. And what I do is I take them on a lateral journey. I use all of these what I call lateral thinking tools to basically take them on a journey through a forest before they even get back to solving the challenge. So that whatever they come back with is totally something they didn't know what they didn't know, and they end up coming up with some radical game changing ideas that I just love having a hand in because I don't ever see the first edition of it, but like 2 or 3 years later, I'll see a commercial for something on a fast food chain I worked on. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
that was from our session,
We did we did that.
Yeah,
But
so it's pretty cool.
if you can, the stuff for Disney, some of the stuff you unlocked, talk about some of the ideas or seeds that were created from that type of an experience.
Well, I do talk about this in some of my keynotes, and one of the things that I was most proud of was we used different lateral tools like I taught about. One of them is called force connections, and force connections is about taking a totally random something and dissecting that random thing, and then using that fresh stuff that you wrote down as inspiration for something else. So we had this big session back in 2013, 2014, and it was basically about how to make the resort experience better and also more differentiated from other places around Central Florida. And I gave one group this little toy van. I mean, it was a cute little toy van. It was about this big. It was actually one of my grandnephew's toys that he left at my house. Right, I
Okay,
put it in my collection. It had a big smile on his face. It looked like a little VW bug van kind of thing. Right,
totally.
and the group thought it was ridiculous that I was asking them to dissect this little object, but they wrote down a couple things about it. They were like, "Oh, it's really friendly. It would pick you up with a smile. It would take you anywhere you want to go." And they wrote down all these things. So as they started brainstorming, they started thinking about they started making the connection with something like an Uber and Lyft. So, hey, what if we create our own Uber and Lyft for Disney resort guests that they can just call a number and they can be picked up from the front of the resort and avoid the monorails and the buses? And the first iteration of it was called Bounce. So, and
Okay.
it was using like Tigger or Judy Hopps or something like that to, hey, I'm calling. I want to bounce out of the parks right now. Well, when the creative team got a hold of it, the Imagineering creative team, they actually came back with another iteration that was absolutely sold, and it was basically taking a van and putting polka dots on it and calling it the minivan. And so I don't know if you ever experienced it, but that the
Oh,
idea
it's
of the
the
minivan
best.
was basically that came from this little tiny toy, and then we created a total product differentiation
That
from that.
is, yeah, I have used the minivan, love the minivan. When it can't use it all the time because it's a little bit pricey, but for the convenience, especially of a big party,
Yeah,
we've done it a couple of
big
times and it
suburban.
is it,
Yeah,
it it's a game changer. It really
yeah.
is. And it's
And
just
it's something only Disney could do in that particular area, and the way they decorate it was outstanding. But that's the kind of things like I use those kind of perspectives to make sure that whatever they're thinking about, because they probably would have thought about some kind of Uber idea anyway, but the fact that they were inspired by this little toy means that you don't have to have a direct inspiration. That you're more indirect your inspiration is from different things in different places, the better off you'll be because you'll get farther outside your comfort zone. I mean, that's really how game-changing ideas like Airbnb and Netflix and things like that were thought of and created, because they totally went outside and broke the rules of whatever their industry was, and then came back with something nobody had ever heard or seen of.
I just love the minivan story. It's so great because it's something I've used, and it's great to see the tangible connection. And when
Yeah,
just to be clear, when you gave that little toy, it was just completely random. Just get him to start conversation
totally
topic
random.
and just
And
completely
the
born
funny
out.
part about it is that my boss at the time advised me against using that tool because he thought it was too silly to ask executives, and these were senior executives, so
Yeah.
we're talking vice president, executive vice president, etc., to use a toy. And I'm like, dude, it works all the time. You got to let me try it. And I tried it, and then they came up with that. So most of the time, one of the biggest things I tell my clients is some of the things I do is going to seem ridiculous, but you I want you to trust the process as much as you can based on my experience. So the process is again a little bit weird, and it's designed to make people uncomfortable because it's only in that space that you can really stretch your thinking, right?
You got to think, and I feel the same when I'm at meetings. Like there's some inhibitions there, right? You're there,
Yeah.
you're uncomfortable, you're with people you don't know, you don't want to look stupid, you don't want to sound
Yep.
stupid, and maybe
Especially in the
what you
corporate
need,
environment.
and maybe what you need is something just to take away some of that. It's almost like it deflects the discomfort upon an object.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I create rules. So I tell everybody to basically I tell everybody if they should stay on the positive side, and that they should also use building language like, whoa, what if, or how
Yeah.
about, or yes and then I tell them if they actually say no but or no because, that they have to like self-identify, and I make them put up their hands and go, hey everybody, I have failed, and everybody has to give them a round of applause. And that happens like once, but it's a great fun way to kind of police the session to make sure everybody stays, because the thing is that when you're in and creating ideas, you want to allow enough space for those ideas, and so you have to set aside the how, because if you get bogged down by the how, you're just going to analysis paralysis the whole thing. As a matter of fact, I bring a little Elmo doll. So you know Elmo, the little red character
Of
from
course.
Sesame Street, and
Yeah.
Elmo stands for enough, let's move on. So that's a rule. If somebody's pontificating too much, you actually could hand them Elmo and say, hey, we got to move on to the next idea. So and it's just,
That's
again, it's just fun ways to make sure people, because behaviors is really the downfall of most brainstorm sessions, and it's because people mix expansive and reductive behavior, and when you're creating ideas you need to stay in that expansive side. Now the next day you can go through all the ideas you created and be as reductive as you need to be to get something out the door, but while you're creating ideas you have to set aside that reductive, because you'll never, if somebody were creating the idea of Uber and they're like, hey, there's no way that I'm going to ride in the car with a stranger, there's no way that any insurance company is going to approve it, there's always reasons why something won't work, right? But just be expensive. Well, how could we do that? Well, maybe everybody has to sign a waiver, and maybe everybody has to get a certain level of insurance. You have to have a certain car at a, there's ways you can think about doing it, but most people go to the ways you can't, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is the power of positive thinking, right?
Yeah.
So that was a great example from that particular unlocking. Over the course of your other 30 somewhat years, what other extreme, what are you most proud of? What are the things you've done which you can be like, I helped do that, like hang your hat on it?
Yeah, I had my hand in a lot of different things. I was part of the Shanghai opening team, and we worked tirelessly for 4 months to make sure we had a really great event to launch that park. I helped recraft a lot of our ticket structure.
Hmm.
I went to Hong Kong for 3 months to work on their annual pass program. They only had a discount program, but they wanted to make it more like a rewards and benefit program. So that was really great. I helped with the marketing campaign for Solo, which was awesome. That was a great brainstorm to be in. Yeah, it's like countless stuff. I one of my clients now is Taco Bell, and they're starting to really amp up their game with AI and drive through and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some pretty big innovations coming out of that space. I do a lot of culture work too, so I work a lot with healthcare providers, for example, to a lot of people really hold Disney in high esteem when it comes to customer service and culture and things like that. So, as an experienced Disney person, I go in and I say, "Here's how you could possibly be more Disney, and here's what we do to make someone, at the front desk be as much of a hero as someone that's cleaning up trash, right?"
Right.
So it's just, and it's enabling people. I teach it. I do a lot of leadership classes as far as leadership behaviors when it comes to creativity, because I find that a lot of times leaders are so bent on making sure the company goes forward that they miss an opportunity to congratulate someone who comes up with an idea. Even if the idea won't work, you have to listen to it, right? And you have to let it not, you can't shut it down right away, because that person won't come back another time with an
Yeah.
idea. So I just kind of teaching them how to really be accepting of new ideas, and make sure that it's open and diverse and everybody has a chance at it. The pride in my job is really it. I know that companies are going to do great things with the ideas that we create, but the pride in my job is 2 weeks later when I get a LinkedIn message or an email from one person that was in that going, hey, I've been told my entire life that I wasn't creative, and you taught me these two things, and now I feel like I can conquer the world. And I'm like, oh, that's the best thing, because we design it a lot of time. We put creativity in people's names, creative director, art director, that kind of thing. And so the finance manager doesn't feel that they're creative, but they're like the most creative people in the business, right?
For sure.
So just empowering people with that, has such a long-term effect on the company and the culture and things like that. So that's I take a lot of pride in that part specifically.
Oh, that's great. And you mentioned Solo. I think a criminally underrated movie. Just
I
absolutely
agree. I really enjoyed
fantastic
it.
movie. It is. It was. I think that Alden Ehrenreich did just an unbelievably good job. It was great.
Agreed.
So I
I
think
see your
Solo.
Star Wars designs on your left there. I see the
Yeah, I got.
land speeder and the
Um,
X-wing. Really, really
def,
nice.
definitely have an investment in it. Yeah, I think they should do Solo.
Absolutely.
I think they should do Solo too for what it's worth.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. They set the groundwork for it. Let's do this, you know?
So you mentioned all the stuff you've done at Disney, and this is a podcast that focuses on Disney music, and
Yeah, talk to
would
me.
love to hear some stories about all the creative stuff you've done, all the marketing stuff you've done, how you've tied in, how the company's tied in music to make some of those messages much more pronounced and emotional.
So the first thing that comes to mind is one of my jobs as a Disney Cruise Line brand manager. I was responsible for pre-arrival and post cruise. And one of the things that we did as a marketing tactic was, and it was back before of course streaming and all that kind of stuff, is we actually created a CD of tropical music.
Ah,
And at the beginning we put the ship's horn on it, and that those things were one of the most popular tactics we ever had. And we also created a theme song that we were to use in advertising and things like that. Unfortunately we couldn't get the rights for it, but Disney is always thinking of that particular aspect. And of course we always use popular Disney songs to, harken back to that emotion. There's not a time when you probably watch a family-oriented Disney that you don't hear "When You Wish Upon a Star,"
of
right? I mean,
course.
anybody who hears "When You Wish Upon a Star," automatically you're going to get all choked up.
Yep,
As a matter of fact,
100%.
I used to work for Yellow Shoes Creative Group, which is the advertising group, and there was this wonderful art director. Actually, he's a senior art director now. His name is Dennis, and Dennis had the most soulful voice, and he would do the voiceovers just for the creative meeting. So they'd hire somebody for the other one, but whenever he would do voiceover, I had to like slowly psych myself out because I was going to bawl at seeing those commercials because I had young kids and I knew the feeling, and they're made
Sure.
to tug on your heartstrings. Another thing that I think a lot about is one of the things Disney does so well is both in the parks and in the retail and dining area spaces is what I call background music or BGM, right?
Yeah.
BGM is something that the idea of BGM is that you're not supposed to notice it because it's so ubiquitous. Is that the word? It's just
Yeah.
kind of everywhere. You
Everywhere.
don't really notice that it's there, but sometimes you do notice when it's not there, right? Because Disney does such a great job. And one of the things I was concerned about when they redid Downtown Disney to Disney Springs is I saw all of these opportunities that they were having live music, background music, things like that, and I'm like, how are they going to pull it off where they have a mariachi band performing on one side and then they have a jazz band performing like really close, but they actually used the engineering of the way the topography is in the space to make sure that those specific spaces faded out as you walked into the next one. So there's a place over by the boathouse. I don't know if
Yep.
you've been to Disney
I
Springs a while, but
sure
there's a
love
place
Disney
and they
Springs.
always have live music, but not a block and a half away they always have a busker type of person, and they never are in competition. And to me that's the expertise of Imagineers, is they're actually thinking of that level of detail. And it's so important because if you've ever been to a place that tries to overdo it, you can hear both things, and it's like at that point you're like, they really didn't think about that. These people thought about it, and not only did I think about it, but they thought about it to the inch and to the millimeter or whatever it may be to make sure that there was no vocal intrusion. I used to be a huge Illuminations fan because I was part of the Epcot Millennium Celebration,
Sure.
and man, I love that Gavin Greenaway soundtrack. It was just phenomenal. I love the way they timed the classics to the boom of the fireworks, like that level of detail, also amazing. When I actually got my undergrad later in life, so I got my undergrad when I was about 30,
Yeah.
and I used to time my drive home from school to Illumination. So right as I pulled in the driveway, it would crescendo to the thing. That's how much of a Disney music nerd that I am.
So so Disney's a company. They understand the power of music. They know how to harness it. They know how to do it. Like everything they do is quite deliberate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite deliberate, and they're not just using random stuff. They're using
Yeah.
stuff on purpose. Like They're using things to get a reaction and to stir the heartstrings, and they're using it at the right time in the right place. And it's nothing short of amazing, especially when it comes to live shows. Live shows are so very well thought out. I'll give you a great example.
Please.
I was just at Disneyland working for their live entertainment team, and I got so lucky because they took us for a tour of all of their different entertainment installations, and they were showcasing the new parade that they had. And when I first started hearing the soundtrack, it was really different and interesting. It had a hip hop beat, right? And
Hmm.
so it wasn't glossy Disney, but basically they explained it saying we have a lot of we have a lot of Hispanic consumers, we have a lot of black consumers that come in here, and so they made it basically for everybody. So it's a little bit of something for everyone. So no longer is it it's just, typical Disney. It was a cool little funky hip hop kind of soundtrack that princesses were dancing to, and everybody was just getting into it. It was it was something new for Disney, and so they never rest on their laurels. So they're always thinking about how to do those improvements and integrating in, like, no company have I ever worked with or for that relies on their guest satisfaction measurement. They call it GSM,
Yeah.
and those guest satisfaction measurement scores basically inform everything that they're doing. So it's nice to know, because there's, as a consumer, there's so many times I do business with a company. I'm like, why aren't you listening to me? I need this specific thing, right? And they're
Yeah.
really listening. And it's one of the things that I take, even though I don't work there anymore, I take a lot of pride in knowing that Disney is really responding to their consumers as best as they can.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of times you talk about Disney and the first thing that comes to your mind is nostalgia. We love it because of nostalgia, but
Yeah.
nostalgia is great. But if you don't marry nostalgia with some kind of new innovation, people are going to be stuck in the past and not wanting to move forward. So I think
Right.
that
Well, also the
that
people that are nostalgic, they're kind of aging out of it anyway. And the people that are coming into it don't have the nostalgia for things that you and I have nostalgia for.
yeah,
So they are looking for thrills and excitements and things like that. And so they're really having to rethink how they've come across it, because again, the nostalgia play, it may not hold water in the next 10 years,
yeah,
as
yeah,
Gen Z's get older and they start having kids and things like that. It's going to be a different thing, and it's a delicate balance, of course, because you still have to pay tribute to the founder, and you have to be true to what, to making every guest feel like they're in the most magical place on earth, kind of thing. So yeah, I don't envy their struggles.
yeah.
you know
But to your point, like especially with your experience and background in marketing, that tying it to music really, I think, is what drives it home. Because you can
yeah.
show a Disney commercial or you can do something, and if you don't hear "Wish Upon a Star," you'd be like, what the hell's happening? I'm not going
Right,
to.
right,
It's not getting me where it wants me to get it. So
I got to tell you, if I can tell you a funny story
please.
about, so there's one exercise that I do. It's called expand and contract, and it's about, before we set off to do an idea, let's figure out what both ends of the spectrum are. So let's figure out the most expensive, most elaborate version of it, and the cheapest, most dumbed down version of it. And really, it's to find out where the DNA is, because a lot of times you say, hey, if we can't, this one thing is the DNA of the idea, and we can't do this, we shouldn't do anything, right?
Yep.
So I worked on a brainstorm. It was probably in the early 2010s, and it was all about, we were bringing the Main Street Electrical Parade back. So I don't know if you ever noticed, but Disneyland and Disney World shared this marketing tactic, and they would constantly send it back and forth. Now, secretly, it was at both parks, but they always said, we're sending it here, we're sending it there.
Yeah.
And, they do a truck thing and a lot of different promotions for it. Well, the big idea coming out of that session was, we wanted to advertise to those that were in our primary visitation locations, which is in Florida. It's International Drive, Highway 192. So we came up with this huge idea. Let's send 10 food trucks, ice cream trucks out to these markets at dusk. We decorate them with all of the lights like Main Street Electrical Parade. We play the Baroque hoedown, and we hand out free ice cream, right? And everybody loved this idea. Well, that was in like February. Come May, we get this email at our building. We're like, hey, come down to the parking lot to see our summer marketing tactic for the return of the Main Street Electrical Parade. Well, we go down to the parking lot and we walk out, and here's this one van, not multiple vans, just one van. It has a vinyl of the Main Street Electrical Parade on the outside. It doesn't have any lights.
Hmm.
It is playing a knockoff version of the Baroque hoedown. So something that sounds tinny and electronic, but it's not the music.
Oh,
And they're selling ice cream for $2 a
oh my
thing.
God.
So like they totally basically took all the DNA of the idea was the Baroque hoedown, the lights, and the free ice cream. And
Yeah.
they took all that, they value engineered it down so much it wasn't even the idea. Now, I don't know how successful it was when it went out, but it was just an example of, hey, these pieces of that idea were important. If we couldn't do them, we should have done something else,
Yeah.
right?
But yeah, I mean, details matter and the heart of it matters. And it's like you can't take the heart and soul of it away. And like the heart and soul of
Yeah,
it is the
yeah, yeah.
music. And if the music's not there, you're not going to feel it.
I tell you, I was really upset. My very first experience with Galaxy's Edge, I
Let's
was
hear it.
slightly upset that you don't actually hear Star Wars music in Galaxy's Edge. Now that I've experienced it a couple of other times, I love the fact that you're on Batuu and that you're totally removed from the rest of the park and
Yeah.
it's something. And I understand why they don't have the actual Star Wars music in that area. They do have BGM that's indicative of that, but
Yep.
I see why because it's so overly themed. But like I was like, dude, where is my star? I was really upset about it. But now as I listen to the Imagineers talk about how they themed it out, it's important to do that. And also Star Tours is still there that has uses the Star Wars music heavily. So yeah, I got over that. But at first I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's funny. It's the same thing because the only time I think you hear any Star Wars-y music is when you walk through the tunnel to get, to
Yep,
Back to, 'cause that's where the John Williams music comes in. But then it's
yep,
all clicks and whirs, and I think the only actual other music you hear there is in Oga's Cantina.
yep,
And they even do they'll wink wink nod nod and do the Cantina theme there. And then I think
yep. Every now and then, not all the time though.
not all the time. It's just every now and again. It's the only kind of wink, wink, nod, nod. And then I think maybe when Kylo Ren walks around, they'll have a hint of a theme.
Yeah,
And
his
then
theme, and
in
also Ray. When Ray comes out,
yes,
they play a hint of her theme.
and
And
Smuggler's
and
Run.
actually, John, they did that. So I was lucky enough to go on the Galactic Star Cruiser before it was shut
I
down.
was on that
They
too.
did
Yeah, yeah.
they did use yeah, you went to
I did.
the
Oh my
greatest
God. Oh my God.
single greatest experience Disney has ever done. Like it was so great. But they used a lot of Star Wars music then, which is really great. And I there wasn't any inch of that thing I didn't enjoy to the fullest extent. Trust me.
It,
I
uh,
spent a lot of money on lightsabers and costumes that weekend too.
you and me both, brother. It's like not only it was me, my wife, and my daughter. And my wife, she doesn't get into that kind of stuff. She's like she kind of shrugs her shoulders, but it was one of those things where you had to be immersed. And she's like, "All right, I'll
Yeah,
buy something to wear during dinner." And
that's awesome.
we'll never wear it again, but we got great pictures out of it.
That's great. Yeah, I had a great time. That's a whole nother podcast though. We should get into that.
We can talk about it all the live long day. All right, so since I have you and since you have all Disney experience, I figured I'd hit you with some rapid fire Disney questions, a couple of your
Go for it.
favorites to kind of get your thought. All right, since we're talking about the music, let's start out. Favorite Disney song?
Favorite Disney song has to be Bare Necessities.
Oh, good one.
But it's not just the original Bare Necessities, which I love. It is actually the orchestrated version used in the Jon Favreau live action. If you haven't taken a listen to that, right after we're done, go download that
I will do
because
it.
it is epic. And
Mm.
it's just the way that the all the orchestra instruments crescendo. It's giving me goosebumps just thinking about it. Love, love, love that song.
Okay, that is a great call. Favorite Disney movie?
Favorite Disney movie?
It could be now we can do it could be Disney Pixar. Disney Pixar will consider it together.
Disney Pixar. Okay, I would have to say my favorite Disney Pixar movie is Monsters Inc. I'm a
Okay,
huge Monsters Inc. fan. I love
great.
Monsters University as well. One of my favorite shorts is the Mike's New Car. The most I will laugh any. I don't care how many times I've seen that. I will laugh all the time. I do have very strong memories though of seeing Tron with my father back in
Oh,
1981.
yeah,
And it's not really watchable these days, but man, when I was that young, I thought that was the greatest thing ever. I love Tron Legacy. I love the attraction. I love the fact that they spent the money and licensed the Daft Punk music for the attraction because it totally makes it again. If they had gone with some knockoff stuff, it just wouldn't have worked. I'm excited about Tron Ares. I heard
yeah.
about from D23, so I'm excited about that. Yeah, but yeah, I think Monsters Inc. has to be one of my favorites, and I am a big Jungle Book fan because I grew up. I'm gonna top that though
Do
because I
it.
just thought
Keep
I
going.
just thought, but I can recite and sing every line, every song from Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins is by far my most watched. So I will watch and rewatch Mary Poppins, and it never doesn't entertain me. It's very entertaining.
It's kind of hard. I talked last week to someone on the podcast, and it was their favorite movie also. And it's just you can't watch that movie or listen to the music and just not be happy. It just makes you
No,
happy. It
you
just
want to sing along, and I'm
oh,
singing the
100%.
songs for the next few, next few weeks, for crying out loud. I remember when I used to do a lot of brainstorms for our synergy team, and our synergy team would bring in all the different Disney affiliates and kind of figure out how do we promote whatever the latest thing is. And I remember they were talking about this really, really, what to me sounded like a really stupid story about two sisters who lived in some ice village, and they were going to do something. They had a pet reindeer or some stupid stuff. I'm like, this thing is gonna totally bomb. And then I got a preview of the soundtrack, and I was at the time, my favorite Broadway show is Wicked, like by far.
Ah,
And I
gotcha.
will sing Defying Gravity in the car by myself as loud as possible. I'll even roll down the windows. I don't care who hears
Good
me,
for
right?
you.
So I was
Let it
already a
rip.
big Indina Menzel fan, and so they give me this promo thing, and I'm like, OMG, and I'm singing Let It Go just the same. Like I'm riding home from work singing Let It Go as loud as possible. Now it became so popular I couldn't do it
Yeah.
anymore. But at first, man, I was a huge fan of that soundtrack.
You were in on that early. It sounds like you were the kind of the OG, like you were singing
Yeah,
before anybody
yeah.
else
You
was.
know, it's funny though. That was they actually put in that same synergy brainstorm I was in. They put more into Lone Ranger. They thought Lone Ranger would be the big deal, and Frozen ended up being the bigger deal that year. So
I remember that. Actually, I remember that Lone Ranger movie. That was Johnny Depp as Tonto, right? And it was Army
Johnny
Hammer as
Depp,
Lone
yeah,
Ranger.
and Army
Army
Hammer, and it
Army
was
Hammer.
just slated to be really good. It also was the same year that Iron Man 3 came out, which
Yeah.
was one of my most watchable Marvel movies. I watch Iron Man 3 all the time. Like, love that movie. So,
Do you remember? Okay, you and I have a similar vintage. Do you remember the Lone Ranger movie that came out in like the 80s?
yes, yes.
That for me, I don't even know. I couldn't name one actor that was in it, but seeing that movie with my family was like a core memory for me. Like I remember
Yeah.
it wasn't a great movie in retrospect. I probably couldn't watch it now, but back then it was the stuff.
Speaking of core memories, did you see Inside Out too?
Oh, right, of
Yeah,
course. I
great,
mean,
great movie.
uh,
Oh, I have
oh,
another music story if you don't
do
mind
it.
if I tell
No,
it. So
please.
one of the
We're
luckiest things about being a Disney cast member, specifically in marketing, is a lot of times we got hosted some really neat events. So for example, I got to have a intimate conversation with Gonzo and Miss Piggy and Fozzie Bear. We were hosting the Muppets, and they did this conversation with like 40 of us, and we just got to talk to them for like 30 minutes.
oh my God.
One of the highlights, though, of those kind of things for me was we got invited as a small group of about 30 people to have a conversation with Pete Docter and with Michael Giacchino about
Wow.
Up.
Yeah.
And I was a huge Michael Giacchino fan already because I
He's
love the
amazing.
Star Trek stuff. I love Lost. I was a huge Lost fan. So like I was already, totally in for talking to him. And I was also a big Pete Docter fan. And Michael Giacchino started talking. Somebody asked him about what it took to make the song that they play when the house goes up. Now, mind you, I lost my first wife to cancer, and I
Oh,
haven't watched the movie yet because I'm really paranoid about bawling my eyes out for the first 10
oh,
minutes.
yeah.
I'm gonna do it.
It's
It's on my list, but I
oh,
just
I'm
haven't done it yet.
sorry.
But here I'm at this thing, and I
Yeah.
I I don't even know what this song is, but what he did was like, hey, what I'm going to show you is the example of the music that we wrote first for it. And it was this beautiful, beautiful, whatever it was, just the cadence of it was so beautiful. And then he's like, but as we got to talk about it as creators, we knew that this was going to be a big part of the movie. And it was basically the last waltz that he would have with his wife. And so
Yeah.
he switched it to a waltz. And I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about it. When
Oh,
they played that. I first of all, I was bawling my eyes out, and I couldn't hide it at that point because I'm just like flubbering like
of
crazy. But
course.
just the beauty of the fact that they changed it to a waltz for that reason was just like it was phenomenal stuff. And just listening to the two of them go back and forth, it felt like they were just one of us. They weren't like these big famous people making amazing stuff. They were just ordinary people that loved working together.
Yeah,
you know?
Michael Giacchino is a genius. There's no two ways. I mean, he's probably the second coming of John Williams, right? He's probably
Yep.
the next generation's version. And every guest I have on the show, we kind of talk about Disney. The Married Life from Up is far and away in everyone's top three. Not
Yeah.
only just amazing pieces of music, but some of the most remarkable animation you'll see. It is for anybody, it's emotional. So just take that with what it's worth.
Well, I'm gonna do it. I
It's
I married this
breathtaking.
Canadian woman who's gonna hold my hand through it. So I'm gonna end up watching it. So
It is breathtaking. It is beautiful. It is bittersweet. It is everything. Absolutely. And also just kind of going back to Tron, you mentioned the Daft Punk soundtrack. That's another element of Imagineering. When you walk through Tomorrowland and you enter that Tron area, everything changes. I
Yeah,
mean, just
total
one ends,
transformation.
the transition is remarkable, and you are basically in the Tron universe at that point. It's an
Yeah.
unbelievable feat of Imagineering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. My partners, my entertainment partners, entertainment reports up in their Imagineering, and it's such a pleasure to have them in the sessions because I don't have to when I'm working with them, they get it so much. I don't have to spend a lot of time on behaviors because they know. Like they never have to say I have failed because they understand the whole concept, and it's just such a pleasure working with such brilliant and they're brilliant, passionate people. I think that's another thing that when people ask me what does a company need, the level of passion that Disney gets is off the charts when it comes to a company like that. You will find that I find that in healthcare too. So
Mhm.
healthcare people are very passionate about working at healthcare, right? It's like they dreamed of being whatever part they're playing, and they love that. But Disney, everybody there has dreamed of working there. So
Yeah.
everybody there is passionate about the product, and so it's listening to these people who create these great things create more things is just like, man, where else could I want to be? I would love to be here,
And That's
you
that's
know?
yeah, I do know. I absolutely know. All right, so we did movie, we did song. All right, favorite Disney ride.
Ah, that's a tough gig. Now
Uh,
I'm going to tell you the story. So I
let's
went
hear
to
it.
Shanghai. I told you
Yep.
that. I don't know
I
if you've
asked.
been, but
Not
I
yet.
spent 4 months in Shanghai. We had a direct line because we had one of our friends from Florida was an operations manager at both Tron, and we had knew another person over at Pirates, and we would go at lunch and they let us ride the ride. So we rode Pirates and Tron multiple times. I found that Pirates at the time, this was 2016, was the single best attraction that Disney had ever created. Not only did they take the inspiration from the original attraction, they morphed it into what was inspired by the original attraction, which was the movie series, all the Pirates of the Caribbean movie series. But they used a combination of live action, audio animatronic, supercharged 8K video screens, and physical effects to create this potpourri of mind-blowing stuff. Like you never really knew, were you underwater, were you not underwater, was that person was real or not real. Like it was just phenomenal. Now that was until I got to ride Rise,
Oh yeah,
and of
yeah,
course
clearly.
to me, Rise is a step further because not only is the whole attraction great, but what you don't realize is the first 30% of the attraction is just waiting in line. They've just made waiting in line so much more fun with the Ray hologram and the going through the Star Destroyer, and that's really just waiting in line. And they just supercharged it like you don't even realize it. you
It,
know?
and it's also, I mean, talk about an attraction where you get your money's worth, even without the
Yeah,
waiting in line, from like start to finish. Was it like 17 minutes or something like that
yeah.
of just nonstop? I mean, for any Disney fan, it's a dream, but for a Star Wars fan who's never done it before, it's like talk
Yeah. Well,
about
if you're
just
not a Star Wars fan, it's a great
it doesn't
attraction.
matter.
And when I don't want to spoil too much for people who haven't ridden it yet, but when Kylo Ren comes through the roof with the
The
lightsaber, you're
the
like,
best
how are they doing that? Like
I
it's
still
three
don't know.
dimensional.
I still don't. I'm
It's
always
so
bummed out.
great.
Spoiler alert again. I'm always bummed out when it doesn't happen because sometimes whatever they'll
Yeah,
skip that past it. But when it
yeah,
happens, it's just. I remember we were there with a couple of folks just sharing the ride vehicle, and the guy was to his girlfriend like, "Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it." It didn't happen. He's like,
yeah.
"Oh."
Oh. Well,
So
I love that attraction through and through, and every time I go on it, I'm constantly amazed. I also love that they gave cast members a permission, like the Haunted Mansion cast members have,
yeah,
which is you don't have to be super smiley. Matter of fact, we want you to be a little bit edgy because you're
yeah.
part of you're part of the Empire or whatever they call the First Order, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, it is fun when and they know just the right amount of how much to poke fun at you and
Yep.
if you step on the
Yeah,
wrong
yeah, they
line or
don't go
wrong
overboard.
color,
They just maintain. Yeah.
it for sure.
I talk about that a lot because I love the fact that they gave cast members a little bit of freedom when it comes to their costume in Galaxy's Edge too. So
Mm,
there's 8 different pieces to choose from, and you can choose which kind you pick and also the level. So you could have a hat and a scarf if you want, or you can just wear a scarf, or you could wear pants or a skirt, or like there's multiple choices. And I also love the backstories. Like go up to any cast member in Batu and say,
yeah,
"Where are you from?" And they've got this elaborate. Oh, I was one of the last. I was the daughter of the last clone ever created, and I was on this planet, and then we moved to this planet. Like they're all like baked with their stories, and it's just super cool. That to me is what other places should model immersive
It,
entertainment on, if you ask
it,
me. So,
there's no doubt. And going back to, so you said of all the pirates, the one in Shanghai is the best one.
oh, like leaps and bounds amazing. Like they
It,
took every great thing we like about the existing pirates and the movies and every great technology that they use and they lumped it into one thing and it's whew, you've got to see it, dude.
all right,
You've
well,
got to see it.
it's knock on wood. At some point, it's definitely on the
And also the
list.
Hans Zimmer music. They didn't skimp on the Hans Zimmer music.
You can't
Come
have
on.
pirates without the
Love
Hans
me
Zimmer
some
music,
Hans
can you?
Zimmer.
Well, and same thing with we were similarly, we were just at Disneyland Paris over the summer, and one of our favorite rides is Big Thunder Mountain. And we've done
Yep.
Disney World, we've done Disneyland, and then we Disneyland Paris. Disneyland Paris was by far the best one. It was smoothest, it was longest, it was the funnest.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
It's
hard
also
to
kind of a
actually.
real roller coaster. It's the one in Walt Disney World specifically is kind of a light roller coaster light, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the one in Paris is kind of serious.
It was legit. It was just a hoot. So I totally understand how the different countries do it differently. Um, okay. Favorite
What
Disney
else we got?
restaurant? Favorite Disney restaurant?
Oh, favorite Disney restaurant. Well, um, I'm going to harken back to after I left Disney or my last week at Disney. I took a vacation with then my new girlfriend, her sister, and her sister's husband, and we spent 4 days at the parks. We saw like three e-ticket attractions every day because we used every different resource we possibly could have. But instead of dining at night, we decided to eat a nice lunch every day so we can stop and we could cool off and we have a nice experience. My wife is gluten free, so she's celiac, and
Yeah,
one of the things I just loved about Disney restaurants is how they rolled out the red carpet for her. Everywhere we went,
100%.
most of the time the chef would actually come out and say, if you don't like something on the menu, I will make you what you like. And to me, that after being, I never really had a food allergy in my family, so I didn't really know about it until I met her. And I started noticing how other places just, some of them don't care or they don't care to care. And, this is her health we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
And so Disney was always like that. One of our greatest experiences, though, was at the Living Seas, the Coral Reef restaurant,
Oh, yeah.
which we had a really prime seat and they were doing a dive that day and the servers were just phenomenal. I have a lot of great memories taking tours there. That always seemed to be a place that the tours that I went wanted to go. So I would say now the Coral Reef. I haven't experienced Space 220 yet, so I don't
Mm,
know about that.
yeah.
And you can always get me to California Grill or to Flying Fish. Like I just recently I did a gig at Boardwalk and went to Flying Fish. I mean, come on, the crusted New
The-
York steak there.
It's
I'm not turning
amazing.
that down anytime
It,
soon.
it's funny. Okay, so I agree with you on so many different levels, but Flying Fish again, underrated restaurant. And
Yes.
one of our favorites. And same thing, my wife and actually my daughter was just diagnosed with celiac. My wife gluten, I'll tell you, gluten, egg, dairy, poultry. So good luck, right? It's
Oh, wow.
not easy,
And
but
they can accommodate that
you
and they will
go to
do it happily.
you go to Disney and they like
Yep.
that makes them they'll bring out the chef, the happiest thing in the world. We go to Flying Fish a year or two ago. Actually, it was my wife's 50th birthday. Her family came, her sister had the steak, which was just phenomenal. And
Yep.
one of my favorite things and her favorite things before the allergies was potato crusted red snapper, which is a classic. So
Yeah. Of
Julian's like,
course.
so my wife is like, I don't know if you could do anything, but I would love that. So the chef's like, I'm gonna make it for you. And I'm also going to make the sauce, which is the best part, so you can eat it. So she's making her the whole sauce. So she redesigned the whole thing, allergy free. It was unbelievable.
Phenomenal. Yeah. That's that to me also, if you're designing a restaurant, you should come learn from that
Oh
because
my God.
especially in the commercial environment, in a corporate restaurant environment. I've been to a couple corporate restaurant environments that don't have things set up. And so they'll bring everybody else hot bread, but my wife doesn't get to enjoy the hot bread and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, sorry, we don't have hot, so it's not just about the food, it's about everybody having a good experience, right? So yeah, I love that. But I can go on and on because I love the boathouse. I eat the boathouse a lot.
It's great. It's
um
great.
I'm trying to think of other Citricos, of course, always love Citricos. Yeah, being a tour guide was really great because I got to sample everything except for Victoria and Alberts. I
I was
still
about to
haven't
ask
actually.
you. I was about to ask you.
Yeah.
That's on our list.
We haven't done that, and I haven't done Remy on the ships. I love Palo. Like I'm getting ready to sail in November, and I'm trying to encourage my. We're taking both of our families and like, hey, we need to have an adult night at Palo, y'all. And they're like, oh,
Palo's
we might not
great.
need to. I'm like, no, we need to.
I hope you
And
don't
of
think you
course, I haven't
understand.
experienced Remy yet because it's always a little bit past my price range. But
Yeah.
have you sailed before? Are you a
We
Disney
have.
cruiser?
Let's see, we did one Caribbean, we did the Alaskan, and we did the Mediterranean.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you heard the horn on the Disney Wish though?
Is
One
it?
that plays basically everything. It plays Star Wars, it
Oh, I've
plays
not.
High Diddle-dee-dee, it plays
Uh,
like all back to back. It's really neat. Now
I've
the
only,
other ships, of course, play When You Wish Upon
when
a
you wish. That's the
Star.
only one I know.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and they're great, but this one has a multiple horn thing that, and when you get the wish together with the dream and they go back and forth like on if they're both at a port together, it's really fun.
Okay, that is awesome.
Yeah,
Right,
look that up
and
on YouTube.
I will for sure do it. And end off with the rapid fire time. Favorite Disney hotel.
Favorite Disney hotel. I am partial to the Polynesian
Mhm.
because that's where my first vacation was.
Okay.
It's changed just a little bit because I love the luau and they took luau away, etc.
I love the luau
Um,
too. Luau was great.
yeah, but I will say that my favorite one is the beach club because I love the sandy pool.
Ugh,
Sandy pool is awesome. And I've always been, my first vacation to Disneyland was at Disneyland Hotel, so I still get a warm fuzzy feeling when I go to Disneyland Hotel because I remember that pool area. And yeah, it's changed a lot, but it still harkens back to why I love Disney so much.
that is terrific. So I'll give you mine just out of curiosity. So favorite Disney movie, Aladdin.
Nice.
Although I'll tell you what's rapidly coming up with me is Coco. That one does it for
Uh,
me big time.
yeah, love it.
Favorite Disney song. I'm gonna say "Go the Distance" from Hercules.
Oh, good one.
Um, Disney Rise, and a close second. Well, I love the old Splash Mountain. I have not been on Tiana's yet, but I'm curious about it.
It's awesome. I
Is
went. I'm
it?
not going to tell you about it, but it was really
I,
good.
I,
I
I
really
gotta
enjoyed
go.
it.
So that's one of my all-time favorites. I'm also a sucker for Avatar: Flight of Passage. I think that's
Ah,
tremendous, tremendous.
yeah.
Favorite Disney restaurant, probably California Grill. I'm with you, although I will say the Topolino's Terrace is terrific at the Riviera Resort.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. I haven't
and
experienced that yet, but I heard it's nice.
it's great. You should. And then
Okay.
favorite Disney hotel, I think contemporary. Just
Classic, man. It's
yeah,
classic.
it's classic. It's convenient.
I
You
told
walk.
you Disney hires me back a lot of times, and they had me in for a keynote for one of their marketing programs, and they put me up in a parkside room overlooking like the park, and I would have never been able to stay there my entire
Good
life.
for
And
you.
it was during Halloween, so I got to see the Halloween
Ah,
fireworks and stuff like that. It was really really nice. When my brother and I went on our first world vacation, it was back in 19. It's just after Epcot opened, so it was 1982, 83, something like that. We spent $2,500 total for 7 nights at the
oh
Contemporary,
my
all
gosh.
recreation, all food, and we had that side. We had a park looking thing for $2,500 a week. Like you can't do it anymore. But yeah, I have a soft spot for that and the Poly because the Polynesian is where I first went. So
Yeah, that's
still
good.
love
The
the smell. Like they still
smell.
have maintained the smell of it when you walk in. Smells trigger a lot of brain activity and that in the cruise. I love the deodorizer they use on the cruise. Anytime I walk on a ship, I'm like, oh, I'm back. It's so nice.
And funny, the smell. Same. I think that's one of the reasons that I'm so connected to the contemporary because the smell. You walk into the lobby, I'm like,
Yeah.
this is the best thing ever. Smell and music. That's the secret sauce. That's really
Dude,
how they
try
get you.
listening to the original Soren soundtrack, and when they go to the California thing, you think of orange smells.
Oranges. You
If
smell the
you've heard
oranges.
that, what do you call it, Soren over California,
Yeah.
and what they had with the first Soren, anytime it gets to that, the way they have kind of a drum tap to it, and you remember in your mind you're going over the orange groves, you're totally smelling those oranges.
It a hundred
And that
percent
was
true.
Horizons too. You remember Horizons when you went out to the thing? I miss Horizons. Like it was
Yeah.
one of my favorite attractions back in the day. But yeah, you always smell the oranges there too. Super cool.
That is awesome. All right, that was super fun. Thanks for all those answers. All right, we
Yeah.
talked a little bit. We talked a bit before. You talked about Magic Do Consulting. Tell us about your DJ gig.
Right. So during COVID, I decided I need some way to channel my creativity. And I used to, back in the early 90s, I used to DJ a lot of weddings. They were mostly my Disney cast member friends. I like to say I DJ'd 102 weddings, and at least 100 of them are still married. So I have a
Pretty
good
good.
percentage rate, right? But then I hung it up, and I decided back in 2015 to use creativity to help with my grief after my first wife passed. And I bought myself a controller, and I just started playing, a digital DJ controller. I just started playing with it. I never used it, but once a year at a creativity conference, I would live DJ their little party of like 20 people, right? Well, COVID came around, and my buddy, I told you about my buddy Gerard, who is the music composer for God of War. He
Yeah.
started this DJ channel on Twitch, and he kept crediting me on the microphone, saying I learned everything DJing from my buddy Lee Kitchen because I used to have an elaborate turntable set up back in my bachelor days, kind of thing, and I used to host a lot of parties from all the people I worked with at Future World. Um, And I just started, he said, you should start it. And so I started this little channel, and every Friday night we would get on, and I would just basically put a bunch of songs in a folder, and I would just try to mix them all together. And I roped my wife Sarah into helping me, so now she's our chat moderator. She goes by Pickles Beats, and we can't do it once a week anymore because my schedule's busy, but we do once a month. We have a show coming up on Friday. My ID is LevyXLT on Twitch. So yeah, come on in. It's 3 hours. We usually start. We start at 8 o'clock Eastern time and run until 11. And we can't do requests as much because it's hard for me to load up. But you never know if I have it readily available. I've done it before. But the music could be. I love doing different kinds of music in different styles. So I troll the internet for anybody who's remixed a popular song in a different thing, and I mix them all together, and it's weird. And so if you're a music purist, it'll make you feel uncomfortable, but I'm trying to do that because I don't know, it's someplace where you can get some different inspiration. And you know, my sweet spot is 80s alternative music. So I'm a big first wave on XM radio fan kind of thing. So I'll mix a lot of that stuff in. But Sarah's taught me about country music, so I play a little country music. We're also huge salsa dancers, so
Fun.
you'll hear a string of Latin music for a while. I have friends in Japan and South Africa. They'll send me their latest stuff, so I'll play some Japanese pop. I'll play some Afrikaans pop. I'll play some stuff from France. Like you never really know what you're gonna
Yeah.
get.
So you do on the channel, no more weddings, bar mitzvahs, any of that kind of stuff?
No, no. I'm actually gonna when I go to this gig I'm doing next week in Panama, I'm DJing their party for
Oh,
them, about
great.
600 people. So I'm pretty excited about that. I don't live DJ a whole lot, but no, the show is really fun. We love doing it, and we probably have any range from 5 to 30 people at any given time. And we'll a lot of times on New Year's Eve we'll do a 6 hour show so we can cover a bunch of different time zones, and so we usually get about 60 to 70 people on New Year's Eve. So it's a lot of fun. We love doing it. I don't want to stop doing it because again, it's if you can't go out on a Friday night, you can just turn us on in the background, and you can either dance or you can just cook your dinner or play cards or whatever you do on a Friday night. You know?
Like you said, background music is very, either you're involved or you have in the background, you're going to like
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
can't go
Um,
without it.
it, absolutely. So where, where can people find you? How can they follow you? How can they work with you?
Okay, so I'm on LinkedIn, linkedin.com, Lee Kitchen. My website is magicaldude.com. You can send me a message there, and yeah, that's it on Instagram and YouTube and Twitter. LeeBXLT, LeeBeexLT. And yeah, follow me. Let's hang out. Let's do stuff.
It sounds great. Lee, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for taking the time. By all means, I will put all that in the show notes so people know how to get a contact. You can get a hold of you if they will. I'll put all those links in there. So
Great.
check him out, listen to him, listen to his Twitch channel, work with him. It sounds like the kind of work you do is exceptional and really changes the way people think. And that's so important these days.
It's a lot
Um,
of fun too. I love doing it.
yeah, Lee, I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. We'd love to have you on again and hope to speak to you again at some point soon.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Have a
Thanks so
good
much,
one.
Lee. Talk to you soon. Bye. All right.